It's the big election that the entire world is looking at. Battleground USA 2020. Hello and welcome. I'm Smita Sharma here on ETV Bharat, and joining me straight from Washington, D.C. is the White House Bureau Chief for the Voice of America, Stephen Herman. Steve, many thanks for speaking to us.
My pleasure.
The reports that have been coming in, they seem to signify chances of violence. It's something that the International Crisis Group has also written about in a 30 pages report. What is it really that you are observing on the ground?
Well, there is obviously great tension and anxiety, especially among Democratic Party voters or independents that are supporting Joe Biden, or even among some of the prominent Republicans who have come out in favor of the contender. And there is a concern that we could see some incidents, probably not on Tuesday night, but rather on Wednesday night when we have a clear picture of what may be happening, that people could take to the streets. And as you know, it just takes a few people to really incite and go off on their own, as we've seen in previous demonstrations this year, to cause trouble, both from the extreme left and the extreme right.
But are there special, in fact, lockdown measures that have been put in place even as far as the White House is concerned?
Well, there is fencing going up around the White House right now, a perimeter around the White House and closing off Lafayette Park and the square there that sits on the north side of the White House. But I would note when the other day when I was at the White House, that had already been closed off. There's been construction going on for many, many months. There's been a new type of fencing that has been going up. But along the streets of Washington, D.C., around the White House, we do see a lot of boarding up going on to prevent the sort of smashing of windows and setting of fires that we saw earlier this year with demonstrations. So a lot of precautions are being taken, but there are no indications that we're going to see some sort of mass civil uprising in the days ahead. But what will probably happen is any incident anywhere will be spotlighted and then be broadcast and make it perhaps look like things are worse than they are. But we just have to really see what's happening, and a lot of that will depend on the election results and what the candidates say about those election results.
But Steve, is that in any way sort of casting some dampening effect, on the voter spirit? We've already seen very high voter turnouts. In fact, it's perhaps one of the highest recorded voter turnout in the longest time that the United States has witnessed. But most of them so far have been the postal ballots. In terms of the in-person voting, are there real apprehensions of violence that is causing some sort of an underlying fear?
I don't see that. What we've also had in addition to the postal ballots has been early in-person voting. And when you combine the two, a substantial majority of the electorate has already voted. There are concerns, for example, in the state of Michigan, whether people might show up with guns and display them, and that could be a sort of an intimidating effect. But there are really no indications that people are being dampened in their enthusiasm to go out and vote by something like that. It's more about fears of the coronavirus, really, right, that have have caused hesitations, and one of the reasons that people have sent in their ballots early.
The pandemic has also been a reason why, Steve, that we have seen, in fact, the Democrats actually not going in for real physical rallies. They have preferred to stick by the virtual rallies. But has this in any way translated in perhaps a lesser voter enthusiasm on the ground as far as the Democrats are concerned? I mean, President Trump has gone ahead and held, even in this last, in fact, few hours, he's actually holding several physical rallies.
Yes, the president has forged ahead and has been holding these mass rallies with thousands and thousands of people that have really gone against guidance from the federal government and state health officials as well. There have been concerns that, as they were called by the Democrats, super spreader events. I have attended those. I was most recently at one in Duluth, Minnesota, where the president was apparently already suffering himself from the coronavirus, and there was quite a big crowd. And yeah, it is a bit concerning, although we do wear a mask all the time that we're attending these events. And I've been at the Joe Biden events as well, which are drive-in rallies. So he has been holding, in addition to the virtual events, actual physical events where the crowd is limited. And this is one thing that Trump and the Republicans have made fun of, saying that the Democrats really can't draw a crowd. That's not true. They're deliberately limiting the number of people at these events, making sure that there is spacing and that everybody is adhering to the protocol of wearing masks. And it really reflects what the candidates themselves have been saying about COVID-19, where the president keeps insisting we've rounded the bend, and even without a vaccine, it's just going to disappear, where Biden has been talking about a dark winter in the United States and warning that the president has raised the white flag of surrender in terms of the coronavirus. So you can see right there in what they're doing at the rallies and what they're saying about the coronavirus, a really contrast in their views.
And it does looking at the elections here from India, perhaps other parts of the world, that this has turned into a referendum on President Trump and specifically his management of COVID-19 itself. But would you say that when you are on the ground, when you are interacting with voters, that it's really COVID-19 that is the key issue that they are voting on, or is it more so now to do with the economy and the future options that's taken the center stage?
Well, right now, the coronavirus pandemic is intertwined with the economy. The president keeps talking about the great growth in jobs and the GDP. And of course, that's a recovery from a very steep drop that we saw earlier this year in the United States due to the lockdown. And Joe Biden and Kamala Harris on the campaign trail, of course, emphasizing that it's been a disastrous handling of the pandemic by the president. And this has cost millions of people their jobs in the country.
Do you give us a sense, Steve, just the last two questions, where have the focus areas now been, and which is the kind of profile that the two contestants are really targeting in the last few hours, given that the national poll surveys, in fact, so far had given a significant lead to Mr. Biden, but that lead seems to have reduced over the past, in fact, last 48 to 72 hours?
Yeah, I don't think the numbers have moved greatly. And also, don't pay too much attention to whether Biden is ahead by 7% or 9% in the national polls. This all really boils down to a few states, and that's where the candidates themselves have been putting the focus on. Florida, of course, is seen as a must-win for Trump. There is a path to victory for Biden if he doesn't take Florida. Both of the campaigns see the state of Pennsylvania as absolutely key. On Monday, the president is making 2 appearances out of his 5 rallies in the state of Michigan, although Biden is seen about 10% ahead in that battleground state. So why is the president focusing so much on Michigan? Perhaps they have their own polling showing that that lead is soft, but that is a state that was absolutely key to Donald Trump's surprise victory 4 years ago, because the polls all showed Hillary Clinton ahead just before the election in 2016 in Michigan.
And it's the shadow of the 2016 polls that still seems to hang, in fact, over all predictions right now, with that level of anxiety that's been created. So finally, Steve, you did mention, of course, the crucial states, but, in terms of the electoral college numbers, what is really the kind of numbers of the independent or the undecisive voters that we are looking at right now? Are they really holding the key to these elections?
There's virtually no one undecided in this election. Opinions are baked in pretty strongly. And I think the real key and the reason that we're seeing these appearances in the last hours by the candidates, President Trump won't even be back at the White House until early Tuesday morning. And
Right.
last night, Sunday night, he was still doing a rally past midnight in Florida. It's all about people that have committed and those that have not voted to ensure that they go to the polls on Tuesday. That's what it is all about right now. It's not about changing minds. It's about generating enough enthusiasm to actually push people to go out and vote in person on Tuesday.
And by when can we really expect the results? Because there seems to be a confusion whether it can be a week-long wait or it is actually going to come in by 3rd November late night.
Well, that all depends on just how accurate the polling has been. If Joe Biden is able to pick up 270 electoral votes without Pennsylvania, then much of the drama is over. Although President Trump has indicated that he is going to go to court immediately to challenge results. He believes that we should have the results on the evening of Election Day, although that has been an exception rather than the case in much of American history. So if Joe Biden's having a very, very good night, it could be the early morning hours of Wednesday when we will see projections. Please keep an eye on what the Associated Press says. The president may come out and declare victory, but the president of the United States does not get to decide he's been reelected, and Joe Biden, consequently, may make some sort of early victory speech. But until we see such news organizations as the Associated Press declare that one of the candidates has won 270 electoral votes, most other news organizations in the United States will not be declaring a winner in this race.
Thank you so much for putting it all in perspective, Stephen Herman, like always. And it's going to be the next crazy few days. It's always crazy, of course, when you're covering President Trump and his schedules, and it's going to get crazier over the next few days. Let's just hope that it's not as messy as it's being predicted and there's no bloodshed and violence on the streets of America. Appreciate you joining us here.
My pleasure.
And to all the viewers of ETV Bharat who tuned in, many thanks for joining in. For now, it's a goodbye.